Hello everybody, welcome to Critical Hit Wargaming. Today, in preparation for the Battle in Balin's Tomb release this weekend, we're going to paint some Moria Goblins. We're going to do that in 15 minutes, get them done really quickly, get them on the table so you can get playing with some fully painted minis. Now, it's been pointed out to me recently that for those people who are watching on devices where it's not easy to see the description of the video, that it might be good for you to have a list of colours that you're going to need to paint this model in advance of you actually painting it. So here it is. You're going to need a black spray, you're going to need some corn red, some Wazdaka red, some lead belcher, rhinox hide, castellan green, some Lauren forest as a highlight, Baylor brown, Null Noil, and Morghast bone. Now let's find out how you're going to use those to paint your model. As always, we're going to start with an undercoat and you're going to spray your model black. It doesn't matter what black you use, as long as you use a black spray to get a nice dark undercoat. First colour up, we're going to use lead belcher and we're going to do a dry brush, like a very fine dry brush over all of the armour areas. And what this is going to do is catch some silver on the raised areas, but it's going to leave the deepest recesses of the armour nice and black, because goblin armour is actually a really dark colour if you watch the films. And this is going to be a really quick method of achieving that. Next up, you'll need corn red. We're going to use that to base all of the cloth areas. So on the goblins, you'll notice that there's a little bit hanging down off of their sleeves and a little bit hanging down between their legs and on the side of their thighs where their tunic hangs below their armour. So just make sure you capture all of that using a brush that's the right size to do the job. Once you're finished with your red, you're going to switch to Castellan green, and we're going to use that to paint in the skin areas. On these Moria Goblins, that's normally the thighs, that's normally around the back of their legs, their faces, their hands, and their forearms. But if you're not sure, just paint the faces. It's worth noting, if you don't have Castellan green, but you do have another colour, such as War Flesh, that will do the job. Basically, you just want to use like a medium green to achieve this effect. Next, you're going to use the workhorse brown that is Rhinox hide, and we're going to paint in the leather details and the wood details on the model. So in this case, it's going to be the leather strap going across his chest, holding his quiver on. It's going to be straps around the backs of his legs and across his forearms, and it's going to be the wood of his bow. Up to this point, your model is going to look something like this, which is pretty decent as far as it goes. You've painted all of the main areas now, and it's now just to paint some details. And for that, we're going to start with Morghast bone. We're going to use that to paint in the little teeth of the model, so you're going to need to switch to a detail brush to make sure you can get in there without painting a giant splodge of bone colour over his face. And then you're also going to paint in the flights, the feather flights on the arrows. Next, we're going to use the ambery brown of Baylor brown. We're going to use that to paint one very specific area, and that is his eyeballs. Again, be as careful as you possibly can, because you don't want to paint a gigantic brown stripe across his face. So exercise extreme caution, make sure you just get a little blob on his eyeballs, and that'll do the job. Next, switch to the magical but easily spilled Null Noil, and we're going to put that all over the model. Make sure that it's not dripping all over the floor, but still give it a good covering. And here's your model up till this point. You've probably put in about 10 minutes work, actual brush on model at this point, and it's perfectly good enough to put on the table once you've based it. You could leave it at this stage if you wanted to, but if you want your models to look a little bit better, we can paint in some other details, starting with Wazdaka red, which we're going to use to just highlight that red a little bit. You don't need to spend very much time doing this at all. Just get a detail brush, catch the raised areas of the red, and it's going to make the model look a lot better than it does if you just leave it with Null Noil on it. With that done, we're going to switch to Law and Forest, and we're going to use this to highlight the skin ever so slightly. Again, this does not take very long. You're talking about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, just quickly going around the model, catching the raised areas with that Law and Forest, particularly focusing on the face to make sure that the face stands out, because that's the area that's going to catch the most light. Now, this is an optional step, but if you're feeling confident, switch to Rhinox Hide or some Abaddon Black, and you're going to use that to paint a tiny little line down the centre of both of the eyes, and that is the little goblin-y, horrible little eye slits that they have for seeing in the dark. But it's going to make the model look really good if you do it. If not, don't worry about it, just crack on to the next part of the video. And here you have it, your goblin is finished, and it looks like you've spent years on it when you haven't. Up to this point, you've spent about 12 minutes, maybe 15 for your first couple, but by your 11th or 12th, because you only get 12 in the box, you're probably going to be pretty good at it by this point. If you've got an idea on how you want to base your army, then please do crack on and do it. But if you don't have any idea on how to do it, then watch the rest of the video for an easy guide. And for that, you're going to need Astrogranite texture paint from Citadel. And we're going to create a Balin's Tomb themed base, because no doubt if you're watching this video, that is where your Moria Goblins are from. So it's an appropriate base for us to create. For that, you're going to need to use an old brush, and I emphasize the fact you need to use an old brush, because if you use a new one or one of your best brushes and you apply this paint onto the base, by the second or third base, the sand will start to dry inside the brush and it will ruin it forever. So please do use an old one, or if you have a Games Workshop texture paint applying tool that probably cost you £500,000, then use one of those instead. And as you're going around, take care not to cover the feet of your model. Next, you're going to use Agrax Earthshade, and we're going to apply a liberal coat all over the base. Again, you don't want Niagara Falls of shade coming off the side of your model, but you do want the base to be nice and covered and there to be no grey areas showing through. And here's what your model looks like with that shade dry. It brings out all of the detail, runs into all of the little crevices, and makes it look a bit dirty, a bit dusty. Next, we're going to use Administratum Grey and a dry brush. We're going to dry brush the base, catching all of the raised detail, and we're going to bring it back up to a stony colour. With the Agrax Earthshade underneath, it's going to make it look like a dusty kind of room, which is what you'd expect from a room full of dead dwarves. And here it is, your Moria Goblin is finished, it's complete, it's ready to get on the table, fully painted with all the other ones you've done, and ready for some games of battling Balin's Tomb. If there's enough appetite, when my own copy arrives next week, I'll do an unboxing, I'll do a review, hopefully do a playthrough if I can convince my wife to play as the other team, because she'll only play as the good guys. And I may do a painting tutorial on how to get the Fellowship painted up nice and quickly, and how to paint a cave troll. And then I'll continue on with the Pelennor Field series for anyone else who's interested in getting started in the Middle-earth strategy battle game. Thanks for watching.